Welcome back to the Kevin O'Connor Show. We got a good one today talking about the Knicks blowing a 14-point lead in the final 3 minutes to lose to the Pacers in overtime at MSG, 138-135 with Jonathan from Knicks Film Room. Jonathan, sorry that you're joining me under these circumstances, but we didn't see this coming.
Kev, I think until you just said it, I was kind of hoping it was a dream. And now hearing you, who I know, you're not a figment of my imagination. Yeah, I guess that did happen, didn't it? So I guess we have to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll call this like a little bit of a Knicks fan therapy session because we got to talk through it, man. I mean, you had a live show right after the game. Yeah. What were the feelings as they're blowing the lead throughout that end of that fourth quarter and into overtime? Like what's going on through your mind as that's happening?
So I will just say, as a preface, I am the sort of fan that I'll take us back to Game 6 against Boston. They were up by, what were they up by, like 41? They got up by 41, and I think the Celtics went on an 11-0 run to cut it to 30 with like 8 minutes to go. And I was the guy who was like, hold on, 8 minutes left. It's only a 30-point lead. So I am never the fan who relaxes. I'm never the fan who's like, this is over. And they're coming down the stretch, and I think the closest I got with the Pacer game to being like, okay, this is over, or this is essentially over, there were two spots. It was when they went up by 17 right before a 4-0 Pacer run, and then Brunson checked back into the game. And then fast forward to when Cat makes the layup. And it was with 41 seconds left, and it was an 8-point lead. And I said, okay, 8 points in under 41 seconds. I think we're okay. And then that lasted for all of, I think it was 7 seconds. And then Nesmith hit the deep three. I sensed it coming, and it's not because this team has blown a lot of crunch time leads. They haven't. In fact, they had the record for however many 70 some odd consecutive games, they didn't blow a 15-point lead. But there has been something off, and I don't need to tell you this, Kev. There has been something off about this team all season. And, I feel a little silly that after Games 4 and Game 6 against Boston, and honestly through the first 3.5 quarters of this game, I had convinced myself that was behind them, that they had outgrown that. And I think what we learned in the final 2 minutes is there are some strands of this team's DNA that are just something's a little off.
Yeah. I think during the end of the Pistons series, beginning of the Boston series, after I forget when it was exactly. At some point during the playoffs, I had a conversation with somebody about, well, hey, feels like the Knicks after a year of messing around, they finally have that grit and that toughness. That it feels like they've grown out of it. And no, they haven't. How would you said I know about it, but like for people who don't know about it, how would you describe that something's off with the Knicks that's been there lingering all year long?
Well, I'll give you an example. So the Knicks start off like gangbusters. They're second in offense for the first 2 or so months of the season. And it looks great. Defense is obviously pretty shaky, but instantaneously it's like, oh, the Cat fit, this is great. McCall wasn't even really playing all that well out of the gate, but they had this crazy offensive rating and everything was just clicking. And then over the course of the season, they had started to deteriorate into this team that was, even when they were fully healthy, they were kind of mediocre. And specifically, and I'm sure, we'll probably get into this, the starting five. And then the longer it went on, you couldn't just chalk it up to, oh, this is a blip on the radar or anything. And you could go back and look at the net rating of the starting five starting on like January 1st. So more than half of the season, these guys are a negative together. And then, through that time, there was a popular sentiment, oh, this is all because centers or teams are sticking their center on Josh Hart. It has neutered the Cat Brunson pick and roll. And I think to a large extent that is true. And boy, oh boy, did we ever see that in the Pistons series and even in the Celtics series, though they kind of figure some things out. And then fast forward to last night. And Carlisle comes out. What does he do? Puts Miles Turner on Karl Anthony Towns. Cat's eyes light up. We saw him play the sort of game. It was the highest scoring playoff game of his career. But if you watch that game closely, it wasn't that Brunson and Towns were getting a lot off of each other. It was almost more like I'm going to do my thing. Brunson, I'm going to do my thing. And both of them individually put up great stat lines. But I don't know, did you feel watching that game like all of a sudden there was this synergy between New York's two best players? Because I know watching, I didn't feel that way. And that to me is just like a little sign that like something is not quite right in the mix.
Yeah, it's a lot of your turn, my turn between them.
Absolutely.
Is the way it feels. It's like, I mean, you would think on paper this would be a dynamic duo, similar to like the idea of, Giannis and Damian Lillard or Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. It's like, oh my goodness, on paper, these two guys are going to have amazing two-man actions, amazing chemistry, especially because Cat can pass a little bit and handle a little bit. There's just so many ways that you dream up how those guys could play together. But it just feels like a lot of your turn, my turn. And I would just wonder how much of that is a Brunson thing, because with Brunson, he's a guy who runs a lot of pick and roll, has the ball in his hands a lot. And I'm not saying he's a negative passer. He's not. He can facilitate. He can play make, but he's not throwing many lobs to Mitchell Robinson. There are some limitations with him when it comes to playing off of the ball as well. Luka, same thing with Dallas back in the day between Luka and Jalen Brunson. I used to think it was an entirely a Luka problem. Maybe it was a little bit of a Brunson issue as well, between how with them it was a your turn, my turn thing as well. So I think ultimately, like you're talking about that Knicks starting five, they get smoked on defense. What was it? They had a 167 defensive rating, or like between the starting five and the game on game one. Insane. Like it's just an absurd, unbelievable number.
I looked at Pivot Fade earlier today, and because it allows you to group by like 2-man, 3-man, 4-man. The starting lineup defensive rating was atrocious, but as will surprise probably nobody, the worst individual 2-man defensive rating of the starting five was with Brunson and Towns, which I looked at it. I think it was 162. And then look, all the numbers are bad, but then you go and you look at like, it's disgusting. But then you go look at like Deuce and Cat. And now, granted, we're talking about a sample size of 13 minutes, but I think it was like a 50-something defensive rate. I mean, it's absurd. Again, small sample size theater. But it just goes to show, and again, it gets back to this larger kind of theme of the season and this team. There are combinations that work really well with this team. Like you brought up Mitch before. I admit Brunson is not the best lob thrower, but ever since Mitch has come back, it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's the Brunson that we kind of saw more of in last season or last postseason, where he's much more comfortable operating in the pick and roll. Mitch is a great screen partner for him, and the numbers in the playoffs back that up. And then you got like all season long, Cat with the backup unit, like Cat and Campaign. Those guys, I mean, you would think they're Steph Curry and Draymond Green with the offensive rating. It's a joke, but like, go look at the numbers from this year. Those guys killed teams. And then you throw in Deuce in the mix. So there's stuff that works here, but there's something about this 5-man unit that it's not adding up, Kevin.
Caitlin Cooper, great Pacers podcaster, made a post. I think it was this morning. I rewatched the game after with this in mind. She posted the Knicks subbed Robinson in for defense during overtime, and then the Pacers countered with inverted spacing. She wrote, started running actions that involved the guards in the middle of the floor, targeting Brunson with bigs in the corner. Close to this game was about shape. Closing this game was about shape shifting in addition to shot making for the Pacers. You mentioned that 2-man combination with Cat and Brunson. Things changed when Robinson came on the floor. Do you expect Thibodeau to make any rotation changes, any tactical changes? Like, what comes to mind when it comes to like, what are the things that can be improved upon, seeing the way the Pacers change the way they played throughout the game, like from a substance point of view, not an emotional point of view?
Sure.
Like, is there anything that comes to mind here?
So a couple things. One, I think we saw early on in this game that, and look, this is not a 1-game issue. Obviously, this has been a 10-year issue with Karl-Anthony Towns. If you are going to put Cat in drop, the odds are that things are going to go poorly. So I would suspect that when Brunson and Cat share the floor, they are going to lean into a little bit more switching. Obviously, that was the story of the Boston series. They both switched a little bit last night. And when they switched, I thought, by and large, not every time, but it worked pretty well. And you know what? Even when the Pacers make shots in those situations, they're the shots you could live with because, like everybody, my colleague Benji Ridholtz says, you want to stay out of the blender because once the Pacers get you in the blender, that's where they kill you. So at least if you're switching, you have at least a better chance of staying out of the blender. So I think that's something that he could do. As far as Mitchell Robinson is concerned, he played, I think it was somewhere in the low 20s in terms of minutes last night. We got an extended look of the double big lineup in the fourth quarter. It's when Brunson went to the bench with his fifth foul. They went on that 14-0 run. It was going to be the story of the game. I guess my only thing in terms of like drastic changes is up until, really, let's call a spade a spade. Up until Brunson comes back in that game with 5 minutes left, you look at the total picture. They were up by 13 points. They had scored at a good enough clip. And I think they had only given up 94 points at that moment, maybe 98 points. Maybe it was 98 points. So like Pacers offense, I think that's like they were doing enough. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they were doing enough. And that's why for me, it's tough for me to disentangle my focus on the larger systemic issues that maybe come from that game and just about not closing it out. And that's where the big, real responsibility lies.
I mean, look, they scored 9 points, final 3 minutes and 30 seconds or so. Like that should be enough to win the game. It just so happens that Aaron Nesmith went absolutely nuclear. I mean, like they scored 23. But it's just like they did. It feels like what should have been enough offensively to close out the game. It's just they were scoring literally every time down, no matter the defense. And I know the Knicks made some mistakes as well. They missed 2 free throws when they're following up 3. By the final minute, OG missed 1, Cat missed 1. There's a turnover, and like there's mistakes in overtime as well. There's defensive mistakes in OT, especially. But like if Nesmith doesn't turn into Reggie Miller, this is a Knicks win up 1-0. Like the fact is, like with Nesmith, if I were a Knicks fan, the shot that would bother me the most was the 6-3, and it's not because it was the 6th in a row. It was because the 5th one he hit with 34 seconds on the clock. After that, there's a timeout and there's a review. It was 7 minutes and 45 seconds later in real time between the 5th one and the 6th one. It's like, you're still this hot? You're still this hot after all this time? Review and a timeout and you're still scorching hot? Stop it.
If I'm gonna rank them, man, talk about a painful freaking exercise.
You don't have to do that.
No, I mean, like, but look,
ranking the pain of the Nesmith threes.
Ranking the pain. If I ever write a Knicks book, that's going to be the name of it. No, but like, but like, yes, did he go off? Absolutely, he went off. And yet, not counting one he hit, I think in the middle of the quarter, the first one of like that closing stretch. What happened? Nesmith comes around a screen, and it's in front of Karl-Anthony Towns. And I want to say out front, Karl-Anthony Towns made some big-time defensive plays, in particular in the fourth quarter of this game. He did a lot of good stuff on switches, even not on switches. I think he showed up, and to say nothing of his offensive performance. But Nesmith comes around a screen, and there's Karl in drop coverage, 3-4 feet off of him. And that's the 3, on the left wing there that really gets him going. And then you look at a few more, and there's OG Anunoby, and like, look, I feel bad OG didn't make an all-defense team today. He finished, one spot out of the second team. I think he deserved to make it. But like, the fact is that OG has had some moments throughout this year, and there was 2 instances. Now, one of them, I think he thought Towns should have. I'm not exactly sure what he thought Towns should have done differently, but either way, OG is receding, into the paint, and Nesmith pulls up, and he did that twice. I just, that's your best defender. That's the matchup you want. And for it to happen on his watch, I think that's for me what kind of probably makes it the most painful, and the Brunson turnover.
What's been the sense of Knicks fans today? Like obviously last night, I'm sure it's a lot of anger or frustration, but is it just carried on into the day after?
I didn't want to think about it all day today. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve with this stuff. Like, there's a video going around of me crying after game 6 of the Boston game, like a little baby, because I'm like, this is what we do this for. I've got really emotional. And this was just, talk about the complete opposite. I think there's a lot of anger, and I think there's a lot of, and it's happened with every loss this postseason. And I know maybe people haven't paid that close attention to the Knicks, but every game 2 against Detroit, game 5 against Detroit, just no-show jobs. Like they just didn't show up. And both of those games were at home. Game 3, the most excited the Garden has been in 25 years. No show. Did not show up. And then game 5 at Boston was like, you had a chance to close out. You didn't, but it was in Boston. You could forgive that one. And I think all of these, after every one of these losses, despite the fact that the Knicks were at least tied in the series every time, fans, it brought up a lot of the frustrations from this year. And I know that probably sounds crazy to some of your listeners, because it's like, wait a minute, the Knicks stunk forever. They won 51 games this year. They're going to have 2 All-NBA players. But there was something about this year where you watched this team, if you were a fan, and you sensed in your gut, this is not as good as it should be. This is not as consistent as it should be. And there was something off about these guys. And I think there's been a lot of blame to go around, including on the coach. And I think what last night did was it brought out just a lot of that negativity, just speaking for myself, because this team, I know they're in the conference finals. It just feels like they should be better, maybe not better, but more cohesive. And after the time that they've had, and just maybe a little bit more on the same page.
How much of that is on Thibs? You mentioned part of it, the part of the blame goes on the coach. Like what is missing there? What can Thibs be doing that he hasn't been doing?
I'm an unabashed supporter of Tom Thibodeau, much to everyone's chagrin. I feel like I'm the one fighting the good fight sometimes, because I always want to try to pay respect to what he brought to the organization and all of that. I think for a lot of the year, and I don't want to repeat myself, but you looked at the offense, you looked at the fact that, okay, why are they not doing more to spring Cat for threes, even when he's being guarded by a small? Why aren't they running more actions for Cat? Why are they going so drastically away from the Cat Brunson 2-man game? And, Josh Hart obviously stayed in the starting lineup. I think as the season has gone along and as the playoffs have gone along, I've probably put less blame on him. One, because Josh Hart is a guy, one of the, really maybe the only guy, who has shown up for every one of these playoff games on both ends of the floor. Not saying he's perfect, not saying he doesn't bring issues with him. He does. Look at Luke Cornett in game 5. But so it's like, if you're Thibs, it's like, all right, I got my one guy that I know I could count on, and he's the guy I'm supposed to take out of the starting lineup. Like, I sympathize with Thibs for that. At the same time, this team has gone through offensive ruts where you're like, all right, I get it. The game tells you what to do, but maybe we need a little bit more than that here. And then I just think, if you want to just look at last night, the decision to take Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride out of the game. Look, was Mitch a little gassed? Maybe. And who are you bringing in? You're bringing in the clutch player of the year. So
as if Thibs cares if a player's gassed.
I know, exactly. He'll care if he feels like the effectiveness is waning.
Of course.
But with
Mitch, that is more of a thing than with a Josh Hart type, of course, or Mikal Bridges.
Well, I'll tell you who wasn't gassed was Deuce McBride. Now, look, Mikal Bridges he's become fourth quarter Mikal, right, in these playoffs. So he was the other guy that came in there. Again, you're going to tell Tom, no, you're the guy you just traded for 5 first-round picks for, who has won you multiple games in the fourth quarter of this playoffs. You're going to keep him on the bench because, they're playing well with Deuce. Again, we could nitpick. At the end of the day, this is a team of veterans. They were assembled to be able to start to compete this year because these guys have all been there before. Everyone on this roster, or notable player on this roster, has made it to at least the second round. Bunch of guys, conference finals. To have a collective disintegration like that, where you're just letting go of the rope on defense, and again, you won't find a bigger Jalen Brunson fan than me. His decision to throw that pass to OG Anunoby under the basket, which again, it's one play and nobody cares about it because Nesmith was crazy and Haliburton hit the shot. If he doesn't throw that pass, we're not having this sort of conversation right now. And I think it's a different outcome. So a little bit of frustration, needless to say.
There's a lot of poor passes, including the one that was reviewed. I think what was it? It's all blending together. The one in overtime as well, deflected out. Like that was kind of a risky long pass. Didn't have to make it at that moment. And those are the plays urgency. Where it's like those are the plays where exactly no urgency, not feeling the moment, and also just those are the choke plays. Choking isn't just missing a free throw or missing a shot. It's sometimes making a pass when you shouldn't make a pass. Saw the clip of them on the sideline at the end of regulation where they're kind of bickering at each other. Clearly there was a lot of infighting and they were feeling the pressure down the stretch of that entire game as Indiana storming back. And that's where, as you said, like this is a veteran group. Like they gotta be more composed than they are in that moment. They have to be. At the same time, like you got to give credit to Indiana too. As much as we're criticizing the Knicks for losing composure and making mistakes, the Pacers, their third time having this historic comeback. How do you have this amount of resilience in these moments to keep battling back and keep fighting? You hit a three, Knicks hit a three. Knicks are up 4 in the middle of overtime with 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 3 minutes left, and you're still battling back. Didn't Knicks have the ball? I think when they were up 4, Brunson. That's when Brunson had the layup, right? The layup.
If there's one thing I'm going to be like, we got screwed a little bit. They showed the review. It was a goaltend. I think it was a pretty clear goaltend. Obviously, you can't review it.
Yep.
But yeah, they would have gone up by 6. Instead, it was a semi-transition opportunity the other direction, and I think it ended up being a Nembhard corner 3. So it was a 5-point swing, but whatever. They should have never gotten to that point.
Yeah, never should have gotten there. With Haliburton, he does the Reggie Miller choke thing, and understandably so. What's going on through your mind as that's happening? Kevin, are you raging? Do you want to kill him?
Kevin, so everybody has different entry points into their fandom. Mine came in 93, 94. And so that was the year of the original choke symbol. Now, the Knicks lost that game. They did win that series, which, again, some people forget. But my true indoctrination to fandom was 8 points in 8.9 seconds. And obviously the finger roll followed about 2 weeks after that. So for me, as much as people you want to talk about, Bulls or Celtics or Heat, I mean, the Heat are a big rival. The Pacers for me were always number one. And then, they had the dalliance in 2013 with that playoff series and the Hibbert block. And then fast forward to last year and that happens. I mean, the best compliment I could give Tyrese Haliburton is that he's a really easy guy to hate, because in order to hate an athlete that's playing your team, they have to be good. And that guy, you said, where do the Pacers get this resilience from? I think their team has been together for a few years, which I think we should not gloss over, but you get it from your best player. And he's their best guy. He's their leader, and they don't give up because he's never given up. Now, I think, look, you could say the same thing about Jalen Brunson. We'll see how they respond tomorrow night. I hope they respond well. We'll find out.
With the Knicks, you do mention when Reggie Miller did it, the Knicks won that series. This is just a game one. Do you but the way you're talking about this team, Jonathan, is like you saw aspects of this coming where it was like this all year long, where this is these bad habits coming back and this gut feeling that something's off. After this happens in game one, the way it's happened, like where's your faith level that the Knicks can actually win this series like they did 3 decades ago when they beat Reggie Miller?
Well, it is only a game one, and I do not doubt their mental fortitude to come back and as much as any team is able to do, put this behind them. The reason why I have some serious doubts is because I think maybe I don't want to speak for any Knicks fans, but like I think there were some in the Knicks fan base that maybe did not have the level of respect for Indiana that I had. Now we had a couple people here at Knicks Film School that actually picked the Pacers to win the series, so I don't. It's not on our end. They're just such a good basketball team, and if you spot them a game that you have, it's less about can the Knicks come back and play well? Can the Knicks make the tactical changes? Can they figure out the defensive stuff? It's more like you gave them one of your wins. And so now you have to not only get back that win, but you have to get 3 additional wins, and that's, I mean, it's just a tall order. I wouldn't put it past them, Kevin, but if you're asking me right now, I picked the Knicks at 7 before the series. If you're asking me right now, do I believe that they're going to win? I sadly would say no, and I hope every Knicks fan throws that right back in my face 2 weeks from now if they end up winning the series. I would love nothing more. Nothing would make me happier.
I mean, look, I think you nailed it right there. I picked the Knicks in 7. I said it was basically a coin flip series that is going to be an epic, down to the wire series. Did not see that coming in game 1, of course. But ultimately, I feel with this series, you're spot on. They gave one of the coin flip games away. They had a win, and they gave it away. And so it's hard to feel a lot of faith because out of respect to Indiana, to your point.
And to say one more thing just about Indy, and the last thing I want to be doing is gushing about this team. Indy's not going to give you an easy win. I mean, clearly, because you know what? Last night was probably the closest thing to it. They're not going to give you the easy win. And so you figure, some series you get into and you're like, all right, there's going to be a game where team X shoots, 40 whatever % from 3, and they're going to, have a 15 or 20 point victory. Like, I'm not accounting for that. And I just think that the reason why I think the Pacers are so dangerous is because they could go down by 15 or 20 points. They're still going to play their style. They're still going to go out there. They're still going to play as the only way they know how. And, it's almost like, there's nothing more dangerous than somebody with nothing to lose. They play like they have nothing to lose. And it doesn't seem to make a difference what situation they're in. And that's just, you know what? Again, credit to them for being able to play that way. But that's part of my why I'm a little, hesitant to predict the Knicks come back and win the series.
They get a hell of a coach too. I mean, I thought his decision to roll with Obi Toppin late in that game, ballsy, risky, but it worked out. It ended up being a great decision.
Put back in overtime. Massive, absolutely massive play.
Double clutch dunk in transition. I mean, looking like a dunk contest in the middle of an overtime game.
And look, if you...
It got fouled as well on that play too.
It did get fouled. They got very lucky there. It didn't end up mattering. Look, I never was on board with the whole train of like OB should be starting over Julius Randle or anything like that. But it was very clear that there was always a good player in there. And I think if you want to, talk about the difference between Carlisle and Thibs. Now, look, this has not always been Carlisle. I believe there's a Rajon Rondo footnote here somewhere. So it's not like Carlisle has taken every player that has come his way and just melded to fit like, what they're great at. But he is sure making the best out of Toppin in part because this is the style that his team plays with and it's how his point guard wants to play. But Thibodeau was never able to really get the most out of Toppin because it was always more about fitting the square peg into the round hole. And if you're going to play for Thibs, you got to be a Thibs guy. And that's, if there's going to be a knock on him, I think that's at this point in his career, I got to think that that's the biggest one.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say with Thibs. And last thing on Haliburton here, 31 points, 12 of 23 in the game, 11 assists, only 2 turnovers. It's funny, like when the Pacers are down 14 late in the game, Haliburton's sitting at 18 shots. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, this might be the series where Haliburton has to average 20, 25 shots a game in order for Indiana to win the series. And then Nesmith gets hot. Haliburton makes big plays, hits big shots down the stretch. And it's like a reminder that he can turn it on to that level basically whenever he wants to. I mean, the fact he's been as clutch as he has been this entire season, 11 of 12 and clutch shots in the last 30 seconds, whatever the stat is, I don't have it in front of me. He is capable of reaching another level in these big moments and in these games. And so that's why, like, if Indiana advances, but even within this series, I do think there's going to have to be a moment for Haliburton. Might be this round, might be next round if they advance, where he's got to take 30 shots. He has to pass a bit less and score more. And I'm feeling very increasingly confident with him that he's capable of still sustaining efficiency and having those types of games. How would you assess Haliburton as kind of like being able to raise his own ceiling in these types of games?
Well, he's absolutely able to raise his own ceiling late, and he's clearly not afraid of taking, the big shot. And again, he got the bounce. Credit to him.
Oh, that
If I'm
bounce,
the
dude.
Knicks,
The bounce, Jonathan. I mean, God.
when it
Oh,
when
God,
it
the
went up,
bounce.
when it went up off the rim initially, my gut reaction was like, "Oh my God, we dodged the bullet." That like for a second there, I was like, "We dodged the bullet," and then
Oh,
of course we know what happened next.
oh my
I'll
goodness.
just say this: if I'm the Knicks, this is going to sound probably crazy. I think I want Tyrese Haliburton taking 25 to 30 shots a game, because if he's taking 25 to 30 shots a game, that means it's probably a decent number of those are coming off a one-on-one play where he gets a switch that he likes, and he's whether it's floater or mid ranger or maybe a semi-contested three. And like, look, he's capable of making a lot of shots. That goes without saying. But again, you are keeping like this Pacers offense feasts because everybody eats. And I think the more you could get away from that, and again, the blender, which again, for the most part, the Knicks, I think, actually did okay staying out of. But I don't know. Maybe that's going to sound, it probably does sound crazy. But I just know when I'm most afraid of the Pacers is when the ball's whizzing around and when Haliburton is able to make more plays as a passer than as a shooter.
And he's so good, man. Like that little scoop pass he had to, I think it was Nemhard cutting and
Oh,
overtime. Just, I mean, the dude's
oh.
unbelievable.
Josh Hart probably should have, woken up in that moment. But yeah,
Sure.
it was a great pass. Yeah.
Yes, man, dude. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe it. Like, I saw like Zach Lowe posted how a ton of beat writers had left and gone back to the locker room and all that. I'm sure tons of people had resumed their night, started, they flipped from HBO Max to Last of Us episode or whatever. I'm sure like they were done. They were done. Like they would turn off the TV, put the kids to bed. But no, like it's just, I just can't believe that actually happened. But to me, like it does look like the Knicks lose this game. The Knicks lose this game in heartbreaking fashion. But the fact that it happened, right? The Knicks were on the other side of it. They had 2 20-point comebacks against the Celtics, different circumstances and all that. It's a second half comeback, not a final 3-minute comeback. But crazy things happen in the NBA. Crazy things happen. It is not that crazy for the Knicks to win game 2 on Friday night, tie series, and then win 2 more, and then be up, be 3-2, whatever.
Well,
who knows? And then you never know. Like it could be a game 6 easily, and then this feels like more of a distant memory, a bad memory, a nightmare. But like crazier things have happened than the Knicks winning this series is my point.
Yes. And to your point about comebacks, like this comeback doesn't happen 30 years ago, doesn't happen 20 years ago, probably doesn't even happen 10 years ago. Like the 3-point shot was just not at the place where it is today to allow this sort of thing to happen. To your point about them getting back in this series, I said to myself before game 1 started, just get me a 2-2 coming back to game 5. Because I felt if you got them to 2-2 coming back for game 5, the Knicks would win in game 5 and then either win game 6 or bring it back for game 7. That's in my mind what I was thinking. I think they will win game 2. I would actually be, this is going to sound crazy. I would be shocked if they lost game 2. And then it's about, okay, can you win 1 on the road? And that's where, hey, this team is now 5-1 on the road in the postseason, I think. So clearly they are comfortable playing away from Madison Square Garden. Kev, I wouldn't put it past them. They're a resilient group. I do think they have toughness. I do think they have mettle. They did not show it last night. They're very flawed, but they're also very talented. And it was not his best ending to a game. They do still have Jalen Brunson. I'm always going to bet on that more times than not. So, we'll see what happens. I would love for this to be a distant nightmare more than anyone. I promise you.
I mean, look, I want to say it's better to be in this spot feeling this heartbreak than it is to be irrelevant for 2 decades. You want to be in these games, you want to be feeling these emotions, but at the same time, like when you're feeling it, sometimes you'd rather not be there.
For Kev, you know what didn't come with watching or rooting for Frank Ntilikina to
Frankie smokes, baby.
Drive to score. Talk about parties we threw. When he drove to score, it was like, oh my goodness, it's happening. But you know what didn't come with that? Pain. That wasn't painful. It was frustrating. It was annoying. It was aggravating at times. It wasn't painful. So, you make this deal as a sports fan, and, if you get the high highs, then you got to be ready to take the low lows. And that's where we're at today.
Okay. Well, I hope we get a hell of a series moving forward, and it goes 6-7 games and some more epic moments, more opportunities for Haliburton to do the choke motion, or maybe Brunson to do it back to him. You never know. Can you imagine Brunson does it back to him? Like, wouldn't that be the sweetest ending?
That would be something. I don't see JB doing that. I think he's going to stick with his.
Who would be most likely Knicks player to do it? Most likely.
Oh, to do the choke?
To do the choke back to Haliburton. A reverse choke. Not a lot of guys I'd choose. It's not Cat, I don't think. It's not OG. OG
definitely wouldn't do it.
No chance.
Bridges wouldn't. I mean, like
Josh Hart.
I mean,
campaign.
I don't think
totally would
Josh
be campaign.
Listen, Josh Hart had my favorite moment of the last 5 years when, I don't know if you remember, there was a game last season when Brunson went down with an injury in the first quarter against Cleveland, and the Knicks should not have won the game, and they came back and won it. And Josh Hart hit a corner three, and Donovan Mitchell was out, and he was on the sidelines, and Josh Hart hits the three, turns around, and flips Donovan Mitchell's like gold chain up towards his neck, and just went up the court. Like, that's more a Josh Hart thing to do. I wouldn't see Josh Hart doing the choke to Tyrese, but I'd love to be proven wrong.
Hey. You never know. Maybe that opportunity will come down the line in the series, and it will create for a epic moment for Knicks fans to party on the streets. Who knows? Jonathan, thanks for joining me today, especially considering the circumstances after that game on game one on Wednesday night. Appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you having me on, Kev. And while I'm here, I'll shout out to all my people at Knicks Film School, because I'm the one here with you, but they have all been doing amazing work for this Knicks run. So be sure to check out them if you are interested in more Knicks trials and tribulations, as it were.
Hey, I mean, you guys do amazing stuff. You got great shows, great content, literally every single day. Anybody who wants to learn about the Knicks or just learn about the Knicks Pacers series, really, like if you're a fan of the Pacers or just want to get in-depth basketball talk, you guys do amazing stuff, Jonathan. Appreciate what you've built, and appreciate you coming on here today, man.
Thanks so much, Kev. Appreciate it.
Thank you.